Coming up, I never thought it'd be so simple, but I found a way. I found a way. This week, it's Drake and Josh, and this is Most Extreme Podcast.
Welcome to Most Extreme Podcast, the show where we discuss and analyze the enigma that is early aughts pop culture. See what I did there, guys? Instead of saying 2000s pop culture. Okay, well, that's great. I'm Brett Ellison.
I'm Jonathan Snowdy.
I'm Jarrett Whitworth.
And today we are talking maybe one of my favorite shows of all time, Drake and Josh. And joining us all the way from Tallahassee, Florida. Well, he's actually in Florida or Virginia right now, but all the way from Florida State University, Luke Burchell. Luke, what's up?
Hello, it's me. My name is Luke. I'm here. I've seen Drake and Josh a couple times, so I'm ready to talk about it.
Yeah. I'm a huge fan of this show. I know Jarrett is. What's sort of your background with Drake and Josh? Is there a reason when we were talking, like this was a topic that you wanted to do, or?
Well, so I think as your mother mentioned it, I was like, oh yeah, that one is good. I think for me, part of it was like Nickelodeon in general always tended to be a little more like edgy and like slightly more inappropriate than Disney Channel. Like I was like, oh, but I can still get away with watching this. But like, you know, there would be characters who would like kiss or like stuff like that. And I was like, oh, okay. Or like, I don't know. And like Drake was definitely, I don't know. They just got into more antics than Disney. And so I think Drake and Josh too had the good dynamic with them, each like being very different people, but being able to connect is something that I think in any show is pretty good. So that's kind of what drew me into that. Just guy shenanigans. And the nerdy sad one was like still loved by his brother. So that's always uplifting. For sure.
Jarrett?
So the show went from, it was like 04 to 07, something like that, right?
Mm-hmm.
04 to 08 maybe. Like that was, at that point, that was like 12 to 15. And so it was like right on the tail end of like watching a whole lot of Disney or Nick, but it was still a show that was appealing, like for that age still. Like there was still, it was still so funny. It was still so like kind of relatable in ways that others, like we're starting, like the shows that are appealing, like are starting to fall aside, you know. I wasn't really watching much Cat Dog at 15.
Yeah.
Good show.
We were like
Drake and Josh was still great.
Transitional point.
Yeah. Jonathan?
Growing up, I hardly ever heard about Drake and Josh. I don't think I really realized that it was like a big thing until I was already a teenager. But as we've probably mentioned before, I grew up in a fairly strict household, and my parents were really big on, you know, we're not going to buy cable, we're not going to buy all this. So I never had access to any of the networks. But building off of Jarrett, in terms of watching it when you're older, I was watching a little bit in prep for this episode of the podcast, and I was like, how have I not like gotten into this before? Because there's some of the jokes that they just caught me off guard, and I just thought it was hilarious. I was not prepared for it.
No. For me, I would probably say that Drake and Josh to this day is still one of my favorite shows of all time. Yeah, right with Jarrett. I mean, the episodes were airing right when I was the perfect age for it. So I must have been like 8 or 9 when they were coming out. I didn't have cable either, but I mean, I got to watch it every chance I would, especially if it was like my family would go to the beach or something, and we would be watching it like back to back, like religiously at this point. The other big thing was, and I'm sure Jonathan knows what I'm about to talk about, is that when we were doing the filmmaking camp that Jarrett and Jonathan and I were running, we made a short film where all the main characters were named after people from Drake and Josh.
I remember this.
It's called First Impressions.
Yep.
It is cringy. If you worked on the movie, Jonathan, you're in it.
I am in it. I think it's one of the biggest acting roles I had at our summer camp. Is that right? I don't think I had a bigger role.
You play the bass in that movie.
I pretend to play the bass in that movie.
That's like that Drake and Josh episode where he pretends to play the guitar.
Yeah.
Hands from behind the curtain.
It's all a reference, and I never knew. You know, it's funny because I was watching some clips from Drake and Josh, and it did strike me as very much a similar type of humor that we had at movie camp.
Sure, yeah. Yeah, I think all Nickelodeon shows, especially the more live action stuff, is extremely influential on me as, you know, a filmmaker. So especially when we're making movies for kids or with kids, that's something that definitely comes up as something like Drake and Josh. We weren't saying like "hug me, brother" and "I ain't calling you a truther," but like the main character was named Drake, and then his friend was Josh, and there was a girl named Megan. So
I don't know. First Impressions. I mean, I've seen all of them at some point. I might have only seen that one like once.
Okay. Well, sorry, viewers, but you're not going to see it because I'll post a clip or
Is that by design, right?
Is that?
I'm not sure. No, I'll post a clip or something of Jonathan playing the bass. We'll put it on our Twitter and Instagram when this comes out.
Tag release the movie camp cut.
Release the Ellison cut.
Release the Jonathan bass cut. So yeah, should we talk about for those who don't know what Drake and Josh is, and we're talking about it,
please.
I can give a very brief synopsis of the show, which I wrote down, which is two kids, Drake, Parker, and Josh Nichols, attend the same high school in San Diego. Drake, the cool and lovable idiot who gets away with anything, lives with his mom and little sister Megan. And Josh, the rule-following, kind-hearted nerd who never gets his way, lives with his dad, a local weatherman in San Diego. Both Drake and Josh's parents begin to date each other, and next thing you know, the coolest kid in school and the dorkiest kid in school are now stepbrothers. Does that kind of sum it up?
Yeah.
I think so, yeah.
Okay. It's sort of a classic, sort of like a screwball sitcom trope. Something that you would even see, you know, this seems like something you might even see like in like a TV land show. Something a little bit more old school.
Odd Couple, yeah.
Yeah. So I can go through a very brief history, if you want, of Drake and Josh to sort of go, how did this show come to be? Unless you guys have something else you want to talk about. We can just talk about how our day's been. I don't know.
Give me the rundown. Give me a history lesson. So
I'm a huge Nickelodeon nerd. I mean, if anyone from Nickelodeon is listening, the dream job I've always had is to be a showrunner for something at Nickelodeon. So I already knew a lot of this stuff ahead of time. But I did as much as I could to focus in on things. So pretty much from what I can understand is that the Drake and Josh first came about because Drake Bell and Josh Peck were both on the Amanda Show. Do you guys remember that?
Oh my gosh! Now this I have seen.
What?
And I had a friend is like this year showed me the like sketch that Josh Peck and Drake Bell are in. And to this day, I have to say, I'm sorry for anyone who does like that. It was painful for me to watch that, the Amanda Show. But I have seen that. I know exactly what you're talking about.
Okay. Luke or Jarrett, do you remember the Amanda Show at all?
Oh, absolutely.
I remember it existed.
Bring in the dancing lobsters.
Yeah, the lobsters. I didn't see a lot of it personally, but I remember it being a thing.
Yeah, I think as being a kid in the early 2000s, it's pretty hard to not remember Amanda Bynes.
Yeah, man.
Big Fat Liar, which she's in. She's the Man.
What a Girl Wants. That's
right. She was in the animated movie Robots, which is sort of a guilty pleasure of mine. Yeah. Whoa. So the Amanda Show. Oh yeah. Wow. Let's just bring her on real quick. Amanda, do you have anything to add? So yeah, the Amanda Show is essentially like a variety sketch show that will start Amanda Bynes. It has a really catchy theme song. We never mentioned that. So Amanda Show was one of the featured players were Drake Bell and Josh Peck. So they were already child actors and they were already on it. And also Nancy Sullivan, who plays the mom, who plays Audrey on Drake and Josh, she was also on the Amanda Show as one of the actors as well. One thing that we should be mentioning before we get any bit farther is Drake and Josh and the Amanda Show, like many live action sitcoms on Nickelodeon, were created by Dan Schneider.
Yeah.
Now, Dan Schneider is very much a controversial figure when it comes to talking about Nickelodeon and these shows. So
he's the foot guy, right? Or no?
Yes. Yeah,
Okay.
He's the foot guy. So for today, we're going to most likely leave discussions about him for another time and focus on Drake and Josh. But if you want to learn more, audience, Google it. I'll leave it at that. So Drake and Josh was created by Dan Schneider as sort of, like an odd couple type scenario from having Drake Bell and Josh Peck on the Amanda Show. So he's creating this show. And at one point, there's this clip I found online of the Kids' Choice Awards from, I think it was like 2003 or 4. And it's very young Drake and Josh. And they're on the orange carpet for the Kids' Choice Awards, not the red carpet. And they're promoting Drake and Josh, but they're still in development on the show. So they're kind of just like, yeah, it's the show, and we think it's funny, and we're still working on it. I found that video through Josh Peck. Current day Josh Peck has now become sort of like a YouTuber.
Yeah, he's doing great.
And he had Drake on the show, or his YouTube show, and they were sort of just like watching old videos of them, and they were talking about sort of the beginning of Drake and Josh, and both of them were just talking about how, it was a super long and crazy, arduous process, and it took so long. And we think it's funny, Nickelodeon, but they kept telling us that like it would never get picked up, and then we weren't even sure what was happening at the time. So the big thing to know about Drake and Josh is coming out. Sorry, I'm rambling a little bit, but is that there were 2 versions of the pilots. And that was sort of the thing that was why Nickelodeon didn't originally greenlight the show or pick it up, was the original pilot has never been aired and was never been released publicly. However, there are very small clips of it on YouTube that I was able to find.
Interesting. How did you find those?
I think I just typed in
web.
I think I just typed in like Drake and Josh pilot. Because they were pretty open about there being 2 different versions of the pilots. It's the same script, but you can feel in the first one that the energy's a little bit off, and they're not really sure what it is. Where like the pilot that aired is really good.
It's interesting. So same script, but the energy was just bad.
The energy was different. The sets were a little different. And the biggest difference besides the flow and chemistry was that they had a different actor playing the dad.
Okay. So that screwed it all up.
Kind of.
Had to get a new dad.
So I think that might have been a note from the producers. So you can watch it, and they have, I don't know where it is on YouTube, but it's weird seeing like the same scene done, and the only thing that changes is the dad. And I don't like the actor who plays the dad as much, because Jonathan Goldstein, who plays Walter, is really good, and we'll talk about him later, because I think he's very funny. But it is really jarring to watch a TV show that I've watched for so many years, and then all of a sudden somebody else is playing one of the main characters, and everyone's just acting like it's normal. It's it's like, which happens in pilots all the time.
Yeah,
but.
Similar thing
up at night.
Full House, right? There was just before it was Bob Saget.
I think that's right.
There's a similar situation where there's like there are clips of the original pilot going around, and it's the same, the same blocking, the same everything, but it's just this other dude in there.
It's not like Uncanny Valley, but it is really creepy. Just sort of like, what? Why is everyone acting like this is normal? It's like, imagine if you were like watching The Office and Pam was played by like somebody completely differently and nobody acted like anything was wrong. It was like
Scarlett Johansson.
Yeah, Scarlett Johansson plays Pam in the unaired pilot. So yeah, it's very interesting. I would definitely look that up if you want sort of a very jarring experience, if you're a fan of Drake and Josh. But yeah, once it premiered, it was extremely popular and only got more popular as it went on. The series was watched by, this is from Wikipedia, this series watched by 3.2 million viewers at its premiere, which is the highest Nickelodeon had ever had at that point. As of 2006, it ranked consistently in the top 10 most watched cable shows. And it had reached its highest ratings by the end of the show. So it kept getting more and more fans.
It was one of Nickelodeon's most successful shows, right? Like ever.
I think so. I mean, in terms of merchandise, absolutely not. But I think in terms of a sitcom, absolutely, yeah.
Yeah, like viewership.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah. Do we want to talk about maybe sort of the uniqueness of the show? Or like, do you guys have anything you want to add?
No, I mean, maybe just adding on to the popularity of it. I mean, a lot of these shows, when you go back as like an adult and you think like, oh man, that show was on forever. I watch it all the time. And you're like, oh, 2 seasons or like, it's like 40 episodes or whatever. And I think just the fact that it went for, I know the first season, I guess, was like abbreviated, but still like to run as long as it did, given the kind of show it was, like that's impressive in and of itself. Of course, like something like SpongeBob or the Fairly Odd Parents can go on forever because it's animated and you don't have like actors growing and changing that want to do different things. But
right, you're right.
To
and
get a show that lasts that long, yeah, it's just impressive.
Yeah, and animation also is completely different. But yeah, I feel like, to me, as a huge Nickelodeon fan, I feel like Drake and Josh is probably like the last Nickelodeon sitcom that was truly made for like the whole family and not just kids. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
What about iCarly though? Because we were talking about this when we were walking about how iCarly, you could have the grandmas there, you could have everyone get around and listen to Carly doing her thing.
That's a good point. I was thinking iCarly is a tiny bit because I've watched all of iCarly and I think it's definitely good. I would argue personally that Victorious is probably the last great sitcom on Nickelodeon, but I feel like Drake and Josh had hit something so different where anybody, like all parents of all ages, were more into it rather than iCarly. And we could talk about how that's a little different.
You have the tech barrier, like the adults are like, "What is this? I don't get it."
Parapods. I don't understand what that means.
Yeah, what's a parapod? Yeah, I see what you're saying. Drake and Josh 2 did have like the parents as bigger characters, which I thought was an asset as well.
Yeah, we'll definitely. I have a lot of notes to talk about sort of the parents and their roles, but I don't know. Do you guys have, Jonathan, did you have anything that stood out and you watching Drake and Josh that made it feel unique?
Really what I've got is from other people's analysis. And one of the big things that I think I stumbled upon was someone talking about, when the show's comedy works best, it's basically almost pitting Drake and Josh against each other, but rather than in like you want to side with one of them, it's both of them kind of just, being teenagers and kind of being like lovable idiots in a sense. And that's sort of like what drives some of the humor.
Sure. Yeah. And even so, I think Drake is definitely supposed to be more of the idiot character and Josh is a little bit more of the straight man. But even then that can flip.
Yeah. Well, Josh is like definitely geeky and like can be more socially inept. Like I feel like they each have their strengths. Like Josh is the book smart, but socially needing some work, and Drake is like, oh, I know how to talk to everyone. I'm so popular, except what's algebra? But,
Right.
Yeah, but seeing how they can kind of love each other and how they both are lovable, right? For a kid who maybe has been told, oh, I'm not very book smart, or maybe a kid who's like, well, I don't know how to talk to girls. Seeing those characters be valued and having good relationships with each other, you'd be like, wow, that's really encouraging to me.
Yeah, for sure. And I feel like their chemistry also changes and gets better as the show keeps going and as they get older. I think their chemistry as actors is like really, really good. In terms of sitcom, I've read some analysis too saying like this is just as good as saying like Will and Carlton on Fresh Prince, or even Andy Griffith and Barney Five on Andy Griffith's show. Like they're so good at timing and their chemistry, and it gets better as the show goes on.
Leave it all in.
Okay, more awkward pause. Jarrett's favorite thing on a podcast: dead air.
Leave it all in.
Leave it in.
Yeah, I also like how the show is sort of just. It always starts out as like a mundane teenager problem, like have Josh having trouble at work, or like Drake losing a drummer for his band or something. But then it just gets more increasingly crazy, and that's just part of the uniqueness of it.
The raising the stakes, classic improv technique.
Yeah. I'm not sure as much with Drake Bell, sort of his acting career, but I was able to find a clip online of Josh Peck when he was really, really little doing stand-up on the Rosie O'Donnell show.
Yeah.
Oh.
Yeah, he's like, well, how old? He's like 7 or something. It's like,
Yeah.
It's so young.
Right. It's interesting too. And then he gets like the Johnny Carson nod over and sits on the couch next to Rosie. Going back to sort of what we were talking about, just like what each character is, because we were talking about like Drake is definitely more the lovable but obnoxious one. But I feel like, that relationship changes with Josh over time, where I feel like if you watch the beginning of Drake and Josh, they're very much like, I don't even want to be sharing the same room with you. But then as it goes, as the show continues, it almost builds to them being more like brothers.
Yeah, they start to recognize that they could be complementary to each other. Like when Drake because Drake doesn't even know how to tune his guitars, right? He has Josh tune the guitars, and Josh needs Drake to help him talk to girls. So they're like, hey, maybe I kind of need this guy in my life.
Sure. Yeah, for sure. Yeah, and I think I also think it's very interesting. Drake Bell himself wrote the theme song, which is a banger. I don't know how y'all feel about that, but
that's pretty good. I would listen to it again for sure.
Yeah, I'm a huge fan of sort of like how they use his musical talent as part of his character. I think is really interesting. Where it's sometimes, a lot of times, especially more like season 2 and season 3, Drake's character is sort of the one that the audience, at least for kids demographic, is the one that everyone wants to be Drake, but we're supposed to relate. We're supposed to relate more to Josh.
Yeah, we're a bunch of Joshes living in a Drake world.
Yeah. Where Josh is sort of like, like in a way, Josh is supposed to be like the dork who doesn't want to be a dork, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
That's probably the best way for me to describe his character.
Yeah. But he brings more laughs on his own. Like I feel like he is the punchline more often,
Right. And I think, that changes over time as well. He definitely becomes less nerdy, but a hot take right now, I think Josh Peck is possibly the king of Nickelodeon sitcom.
Ooh. Do you want to elaborate on that?
When you say that, what do you mean when you say that?
I think when I think of Nickelodeon sitcoms, which we can talk about how, this can relate to Kenan and Kel, where they're very similar in terms of a show. But to me, I think Josh Peck is so good at balancing both comedy and drama and leading man and punchlines, everything that when I think of Nickelodeon sitcom acting, I immediately think of Josh Peck.
So you're pointing him out, singling him out specifically in terms of sort of acting talent and screen presence. Is that what you're getting at?
Yeah, I mean, for sure, Nickelodeon is the show that, made him a star, as it's the same with Drake Bell. But when I think more as of an actor, I think everyone goes, oh, Josh Peck. When you think of Drake and Josh, he's sort of like the single one that pops out a little bit more than Drake Bell, even though I think both of them carry the weight.
Yeah, I see what you're getting at. I think, he's more of a standout.
He's got a good stage presence because basically on that 3-camera sitcom style, you're basically just doing a play in front of cameras.
That's true. I didn't think about that.
Compared to something like, which we'll definitely get into at some point, Ned's Declassified, which I would probably argue is the better show. But that's a single camera setup where it's one camera just sort of following everything, which are a lot harder to film, but can sometimes get a better. Sorry, was somebody going to say something I didn't hear?
No, I think you mentioned Ned's Declassified, and I might have given like a because that was another. It was like that and Drake and Josh, the two kings. And you point out Josh Peck. I was going to throw at you the janitor from Ned's Declassified.
What's his name?
Among the pantheon of Nickelodeon characters.
That's Darren Norris, who also voices Cosmo on The Fairly Odd Parents.
Yeah. Oh. So I see your Josh Peck. I raise you Darren Norris.
Well, the other one that came to mind was Jerry Trainer, which we'll get to in a little bit because he's been on so much Nickelodeon stuff and he's great. Side note, anytime Jarrett has ever been over, if I've ever gone to like a lunch thing with Jarrett and someone's explaining what's being fed, it'd be like, okay, so today we have this chicken parmesan, whatever. You just, anytime anyone explains the food, you just hear Jarrett. And so we have this, we haven't even eaten yet. And Jarrett's like,
I had no idea where that was going for a while. But yes, I can confirm that does happen.
The anticipation.
Yeah. I like to be affirming to the hosts or the people who have provided the food.
I like that. That's really real.
Just bring that positive energy to the potluck.
Yeah.
Yeah, so we have some chicken chili. Oh, my word.
Jarrett, did you remember to bring a side dish? No, but I brought all this positive energy and optimism. That's good for me.
2 scoops of smiles.
Are we at a charismatic church or are we at a potluck?
I brought the snake. What?
Whoa.
So anyway, Drake and Josh. Yeah.
Is someone moving a boulder? Okay, I guess it's gone.
Jonathan's on the Bowflex or something.
This is okay. Oh, sorry, everybody.
Getting my workout in
while you're podcasting.
Yeah, can't skip leg day.
Oh yeah. As a disclaimer, sort of to the audience, we're going back and forth between doing stuff on Zoom and doing it in person and yada yada yada. So if you're wondering why like some of the audio sounds different for every episode, it's more just so that we can get everybody in the same place. So
yeah, exactly.
Jarrett, what were you going to say before we heard the Temple of Doom crash?
I cannot recall at all. I don't know if I was going to say anything.
I think we were talking about a show called Drake and Josh. I don't know if
that's right. Yeah. I thought we were talking about chili and potlucks.
What's everyone's favorite kind of chili? Round table could describe.
The one that they make in the Peruvian puff pepper episode.
Oh, good transition.
Wow.
Only found in South America.
Yeah,
Very, very rare delicacy.
that was
Place.
I read an interview with Drake Bell, or I watched an interview, and he was talking about like, I know that Drake is stupid, but how has he never heard the word America before?
Like, he's in high school.
Yeah.
And he can't read.
That happens with the character Kat in Victorious. Like, she's never heard USA before, and so she keeps calling it USA.
USA.
It's one of those like Nickelodeon jokes where it's like the kids will get it.
Yeah.
But I was gonna say, sort of the moment to me, I think like season 1 is very much like Drake and Josh sort of getting used to the show, and then also getting used to, you know, being stepbrothers. To me, the moment of the show where like they've become friends or they've become brothers is the Blues Brothers performance.
Yes, that is written down with a star next to it in my notes here. That episode is fantastic.
Right. Do we need to explain that?
Yes.
Okay. Do you want to go, Jarrett?
No, I just would have loved if we just didn't explain it. We just
okay.
You all know what we're talking about.
Google it.
Yes. So the Blues Brothers episode.
I'm Googling it right now.
No,
I can say.
No, go for it.
Oh, I'll go for it. Like, it's one of those, and we were talking about it, dancing around a little bit earlier, but, you know, Drake and Josh being so different, they're like, there are multiple kinds of episodes, and one of them is when they're in competition with each other, and one of them is when they come together, and like both are great in different ways and can provide humor. And Blues Brothers is one where they're teammates in this episode. So yeah, like Josh goes on the air. Anyone correct me if I'm wrong. I'm just trying to remember here, but Josh goes on the air he like fills in for his dad doing weather. It's like, hey, I brought my son to do the weather. And he just like breaks out in some crazy sweat and starts twitching because he's like super nervous and online, and becomes like this, you know, video that gets shared around. Like, he just embarrasses himself. And so then he's like, shutting himself away. And meanwhile, Drake has a talent show at the premiere or whatever. And normally they would do their Blues Brothers routine, and Josh would be a part of it, and they would dress up and like play the harmonica and whatever. But Josh, having been so embarrassed, doesn't want to do it until eventually, you know, Drake kind of like convinces him and encourages him enough. And then the final number of the show is them singing Soul Man, and it's incredible.
Can I point out two things real quick?
Yeah.
I think they were planning on doing the Blues Brothers thing, but I remember when they get to the talent show or whatever they're performing, another band sings Drake's song, like the theme song of the show.
You're right.
And then they're like, wait, what? And that's why they do Soul Man. You're
right. That's like we got to change to doing this. Josh, I need you. Yeah, that's right.
Do you want to know who directed that episode?
Who directed that episode?
The Wonder Years star himself, Fred Savage.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah, or star of The Princess Bride.
Yeah. Or a guest appearance on Boy Meets World as creepy college professor who hits on Topanga.
Whoa, I did not know that.
Yeah.
He's also directed a bunch of Ned's Declassified. I want to say he was even a producer on that show.
I think that's right, yeah.
And that's another example of like how Drake and Josh is so interesting where, yeah, there's a lot of like the classic Nickelodeon jokes where it's like gross humor, right? We're going to throw a bunch of like gross goo and stuff everywhere. But like as a kid, I didn't know who the Blues Brothers were.
Yeah. I still like only kind of vaguely know.
Now I love them, but
and that's kind of to the appeal of, you know, you saying this is one of the last like kids and parents could enjoy the show, because something like that is like a reference that parents would understand.
Yeah,
you know, if they've seen the Blues Brothers or, you know, the SNL skits and whatnot.
Right. I mean, and we'll talk about it, I'm sure, coming up. But like, Josh is obsessed with Oprah. I mean, not a lot of kids like are watching Oprah, you know.
Yeah, kids just enjoy saying Oprah.
Oh, I was gonna say, because we were just talking about Peruvian puff pepper, I was gonna say maybe the other big factor that goes into Drake and Josh is Megan.
Yeah, can't forget about Megan. She was in charge. She was running everything behind the scenes.
I mean, all of us have siblings, so I mean, we've all at some point had believed or was convinced that they were trying to like backstab us at every point.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So it's just funny that they kind of played with that, and that she's sort of, she starts out as definitely more of a running gag, but I think that's a fun character is Megan Parker.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, she's clever. If only she, directed some of that intellect towards something else. I guess that's why she turned around and made iCarly. It's like, well, I'm over it.
Is iCarly like in canon with Drake and Josh? I've never seen iCarly.
I can kind of answer that. Yes and no.
The Drake and Josh extended universe.
So yes and no. So no, in that the show is they're playing completely different characters. Crazy Steve, Jerry Trainer, which is why I was going to make him up. We'll talk about him in a second. But he plays the older brother in iCarly, Spencer. Okay. And so there's a few of the same actors, not that many. Nathan Kress was on an episode of Drake and Josh, so he comes in as plays sort of one of the main characters. The reason I would say yes, it is a continuation is two things. Number one, there's a very strange fan theory going around that iCarly is that Crazy Steve kidnaps Megan and then takes her to Seattle and then says her name is Carly and that his name is Spencer.
Oh my God.
Yeah, that's the like Tumblr theory of the show. But the only thing that's ever happened on the show is on iCarly at one point they're all just like sitting in the kitchen and Drake Bell just walks in and then goes, "Hey Megan." "Hey Megan," and everyone goes, "Who are you?" Which is pretty funny.
Because Crazy Steve wiped their memories.
Exactly. No, well,
the X-Files theme.
Or does that mean they're in the Men in Black universe? He is an agent.
That'd be sick. I love Men in Black.
Oh, so good.
Yeah, I think also in Victorious at one point, there's an episode where Victoria Justice, like, she falls down or something like that, and the door bursts open and Drake Bell runs out and catches her before she falls to the ground, and then picks her back up, smiles, looks at the camera, and runs away. And then everyone says, "What happened?" And she goes, "I think I was saved by the bell."
Oh, wow.
Oh, my gosh.
It's incredible.
I feel like
Boo.
It's like I just told all of you guys that, like, I was shopping with your credit card or something. You're like, "Oh my gosh."
How do I leave this Zoom call? How do I?
That's
just
where
unplug your computer.
But yeah, no, I love the character of Megan Parker. I think she's interesting. The Peruvian puff pepper, as we were just mentioned, is probably my favorite Megan episode. I like that, like, we see her room. I think that's the first time we see her room. She has like the hidden TV behind. That's really fun. And Miranda Crossgrove does a great job of being, especially when like their parents come in, she's acting like super innocent. I think that's really funny.
Yeah, the rooms too. I like the way that they did the bedrooms. Even Drake and Josh's bedroom. That was, for me as a kid, like, wow, that would be so epic. I wish I had that.
That's
like the Nickelodeon version of like the crazy sitcom New York apartment that would cost like $7,000 a month.
You know, it's funny. It's because I saw a post once that was like, that house was put up for sale. It's like all the exterior shots. That house was up for sale, and on the listing you can read it's like a 4 or 5 bedroom house, and everyone's like, "So why were they sharing a room?"
That is maybe like, I don't know, a kid who watched Drake and Josh who was like, doesn't want that room. That is the coolest room.
Yeah.
Oh, it's super cool.
Which, if we want to, I can talk about this because I was going to bring it up later. But season 1, the room was completely different. Where Josh's bed was, there was a drum kit. The window behind him was an octagon instead of a circle. The door was facing.
Door's in a different place. I remember.
The door's in a different place. Josh actually slept on the couch. And there was also like a shelf on the right side of the door, where in seasons 2, 3, and 4, it's the bedroom that we know, with like the Oprah picture and everything. So yeah. Well, that's another thing that I really like is that the like living room set with the kitchen just kind of looks like a normal house. Like with a lot of like the Nickelodeon sitcoms, and Disney Channel is probably the biggest culprit of this. It's like it looks so extravagant and so like ridiculous that it's like hard to believe that somebody would live there. Mm-hmm. Whereas with this, it's like, oh yeah, that looks like anyone's house that I would go to visit.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, the living room was like very regular, very vanilla.
Yeah, and like they had like, you know, wood panel floors, things like that, and the couch looked, you know, decent. So, I mean, it didn't look crappy, but it looked like a suburban house.
Seemed like the upstairs must have been like 3 times the size of the downstairs.
Yeah, that sounds right.
So if you were to like architectural, like what that house would have looked like from the outside, it would have been shaped like an upside down pyramid.
Right, and I think from like the pictures online, or just from the exterior shots of when they shoot the house, is that Drake and Josh's room is supposed to be above the garage. Is that right?
Yeah, I'm pretty sure.
It's almost like an attic room.
Yeah, it must be.
Yeah. Should we talk about some more of the like subsequent supporting characters, maybe?
Let's do it.
Yeah, because this is not Miranda Cosgrove's first role, but this is what sort of boosted her to later be the star in like iCarly, right?
Right. And that's very much a Nickelodeon thing where, well, this happened with Drake and Josh, for example. Like they were on the Amanda Show as supporting characters, but then got their own show. And so Miranda Cosgrove, who at this point she had already been in School of Rock, which we'll have to definitely talk about, and other things, she then got the part of iCarly through doing Drake and Josh. Yeah. But yeah, I was going to say, unless you guys have some supporting characters that come to mind, the first ones that always come to mind are the 2 nerds characters.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Their names are like Craig and
Eric.
Right.
Eric,
and nobody can ever get them correct or something. It's like, no, I'm Craig.
Yeah, something like that, right? I do remember that a little bit.
They are...
And it's such a classic thing because like Drake's never like nice to him, but then they'll still like he can still talk them into doing things for him.
Right. I want to say it's in the episode Who's Got Game, where
that's exactly what I was thinking of. Where
Drake says, "Well, come on, what happened to you?" And then I think it's Eric says, "Last time you came over to my house, you ate my entire cake and then took a nap in my bed." It's the best line ever.
They still help them.
They anytime they show up, they're very, very funny. I think they have the best fun and they get the most time to shine in the episode The Demonator, where they get the B plot with another supporting character or minor character that I love that we'll definitely get to later.
We will stay tuned.
Crazy Steve, we talked about a little bit. I like how Crazy Steve is obsessed with Dora. That's pretty funny.
Ooh, yeah. Is that allowed?
It's right behind you, Dora.
I think it's funny because it's showing like, okay, Nickelodeon is for older people. So like, yeah, we can make fun of this little kid stuff and they're okay with doing it as a brand.
Yeah. We're like, yeah, Dora's for babies. I watch Drake and Josh.
Yeah. I think that's really interesting. I read a fact. I don't know if this is true because I had nothing to back this up, but I read that Jerry Traynor got the role of Crazy Steve because he was Drake Bell's personal assistant. I don't have anything to back it up, but I remember reading that at one point, I think on the IMDb trivia page for the show, but I think it's since been taken off. But
I see. He didn't want that info going out.
Yeah. I mean, Crazy Steve has maybe the part that has made me laugh the most, which is during the Really Big Shrimp Part 1, Part 2 episode, where Mindy accidentally schedules him on a Monday, which is his bad day, apparently. And Josh has to fix the problem at the movie theater, in which you see a crowd of people running out of a movie theater, and Crazy Steve with like these extendable sock puppets flailing around and saying cock-a-doodle-doo, the cow says moo, and screaming at people. It is hilarious.
Perhaps, our earliest exposure to a nervous breakdown or mental health crisis as kids. Like, whoa, this is no joke.
Right, which Josh fixes by singing Mary Had a Little Lamb with him. So
yeah, so now I know that could be a strategy, and if I encounter that, sing a nice song.
Yeah,
try and bring it back.
Yeah, a little mental health advice from Drake and Josh, if anyone didn't know. Just sing Mary Had a Little Lamb.
Yeah, don't try it at home unless you have to.
Right.
And, maybe it'll help.
Whoa, what was that?
What in the world?
I heard an explosion.
Yeah, did someone self-combust?
I'm still here.
Okay.
I'm alive, to my knowledge.
Okay, what was that? I was wondering. I hope everyone's okay. Sorry, audience, for hearing that.
It was leave it in.
Leave it in.
Leave it in. I hope
Headphone users beware.
People on Highway 40 have been flailing out of control after listening to Most Extreme Podcast in the middle of the Drake and Josh episode.
No such thing as bad publicity, though, right?
Just people driving. Wow, this is a good show. Get caught off guard by the sound of an explosion.
Veering off the road.
Apologies in advance. Go ahead.
I was just going to say, keeping with minor characters and keeping with the movie theater, Helen, even like when I watched Community, I recognized that Nicole Brown, right? Is that her name? And I was like, she is from Drake and Josh.
Right, yeah. I was about to say.
And that one episode of The Office.
Right, she's in The Office. What else is she's in? So many things, and she's good in all of them. I would say, she's in Avengers.
She's in Avengers?
Yeah, she's in Endgame at one point.
What?
Yeah, so the Russo brothers. She's Captain America. No, the Russo brothers directed most of the first few seasons of Community, and so they always throw in like some Community cameos. So in Endgame, it's Ken Jeong plays the security guard in Ant-Man's like garage. And then Yvette Nicole Brown shows up when, spoiler alert, when Captain America and Tony Stark go back in time to like the 60s or 70s.
Is she the one in the elevator?
Oh, that's right.
Who's like, you new here?
Yeah, that's her.
Oh my gosh.
That's right.
Yeah. I mean, I was flipping out because I knew that if it's the Russo's brothers, there's going to be at least a reference to Arrested Development, like in Civil War, the airplane.
The stairs.
The stairs are in the background. Or Community, because they had directed both of those shows prior. But I think Yvette Nicole Brown is super hilarious. I love the episode where she has surgery on her eyes.
Yep.
And we figure out she was a former child star. That's pretty hilarious. Also, I find it funny that her whole bit is that she loves anything Drake does and thinks Josh is just kind of like whatever.
Yeah, which again just feeds into the character dichotomy there between the good kid and the like slacker kid.
Right. Wasn't always played by Yvette Nicole Brown. Even in episodes that have aired, Helen wasn't always played by Yvette Nicole Brown.
Was it multiple episodes or just like one?
Just
like
one. There was one episode where Helen was played by another actress called in the episode Little Diva. It was played by somebody named Frances Callier, who plays Roxy on Hannah Montana. At some point, and I've definitely talked to you guys about having to do like a whole month worth of content on Hannah Montana because there's so much. I did find from Yvette Nicole Brown, she wrote, I think I want to say it was on Twitter or something. So people were asking about like how all of a sudden she's another person plays Helen, and then she comes back and it's the other person. She says, I originated the role of Helen as a guest star, but I was on a regular TV ABC show called The Big House and was asked to do an episode of Drake and Josh again and wasn't able to do the episode. So they decided to recast Helen instead of having somebody else play her cousin or sister. By the time they wrote a third episode for Helen, The Big House had ended and I was available again, and I played Helen in every episode after that. Oh, Mindy. That was a character I wanted to talk about.
Crenshaw.
I think she is truly the best love interest of the show.
Really? She's the only one I remember, at least.
She's the only one that really lasts for anybody, right?
She's the
Yeah.
Is that the one where Josh and her are like angry and like spiteful to each other?
Yeah, so they start out as enemies on the show.
Yeah, that's all of them.
Yeah. She still hates Drake through the whole show. Like at one point, because Josh and Mindy start out as enemies, but then end up falling in love and breaking up. They break up over and over again, but I think that's basically just stays as Josh's love interest for the whole show, for the most part. Like anytime Drake and Mindy are in the same room, Drake will just like say under his breath like dork, and she'll say like underachiever like really quickly.
I see. So yeah, they don't get along at all.
No. That is just part of the show.
Ever bothered Josh? Does Josh ever bothered that two important people like in his life hate each other, or is he just taking it in stride?
Hey, Mindy, that's my brother.
Yeah, or like, hey, this is my girlfriend. Would you mind respecting her every once in a while?
Well, I do know that first episode when they start dating, and Josh like doesn't tell Drake for that very reason, because he's like, I don't know, like, because Drake hates her. Like, what's he gonna think?
Yeah.
Right? And then at the end, Drake's just like, dude, you like a girl, like, and she likes you. That's awesome.
Yeah.
Go for it. Like, I don't like her, but that's fine.
Yeah, no, she's cool, and she's also like an interesting character, which we'll probably get into in a second. But I was going to say, unlike a lot of Drake's other girlfriends, but
yeah, I don't think Drake had many like steady girlfriends really that I know of.
He does get one girlfriend that he has for a few episodes, whose name is Carly, which is interesting, and she's really cool. And I think that's the episode where he sort of realizes, like, no, there's more to it than just her looks. Like, I really like this person as a person. And that's that same episode where they try to see how many girls they can date.
That's right. Yeah.
And he's like, wait, I don't want to do this because I actually like, this is the first time I'm falling for somebody for who they are.
Right.
True.
So he does grow up, which is cool.
And it's also, it's like, I'm looking at him going like, okay, like I know, like there are cool, like 14-year-olds in my high school or 15-year-olds, right? And it's like, but that just doesn't happen.
Right. Yeah. You just go up to
it. Almost just like too much of a caricature. He's like an actual just stinking rock star. And it's like, no, he has algebra.
Right.
And
which is part of why you're supposed to want to be Drake, I guess, because he gets all the ladies. For all you straight guys out there, that's what he's kind of supposed to be, that he can get a girl. Like he can literally just walk up to a girl and be like, hey, you want to go on a date? Yeah, sure. That's it. I was going to talk about the role of the parents.
Yeah, do it.
Please do.
I think that Walter is super funny. He also, I mean, we talked about him a little bit, how they had recasted him, but Jonathan Goldstein, the actor who plays him, is really, he just kind of looks like a dad. Both of the parents just look like there was a rumor going around that they were actually married in real life, because they just look like they would be married, and they just look like parents that people would have. I don't know. I guess Walter, he has his nemesis Bruce Winchell, which I think is pretty funny.
What's his name?
Bruce Winchell.
Oh.
So he's another
who has some
weatherman.
good hair or whatever, right?
Yeah, everyone's obsessed with Bruce Winchell because his hair is so good, and he keeps losing rating. We never see Bruce once in the whole show.
You never did? Oh.
No, I don't think we do. And later, iCarly would sort of do the same thing with the character of Sacco, who was just a character that keeps like interspersing within the episodes, but you never see him.
Yeah, it leaves it to the imagination. We could always dream about them. And what it might be like. If
Bruce
we actually
Winchell.
encounter them.
Yeah, it's funny.
Dreaming about Bruce Winchell.
Well, I hope the audience dreams about Bruce Winchell tonight.
Don't eat any bad pizza.
No, Walter kind of gets his own episode in The Affair, which is pretty funny, but a little bit more of a dramatic episode.
Yeah, because their dad is cheating.
Yeah, they keep thinking that their dad is cheating on their mom, which is something that every kid does not want to see. So they keep spying, but it figures out that he's possibly going to get a promotion or something, and that he was just talking to a woman about like moving to a different job or something. So, yeah. Also, I like that we never figure out what the mom does on the show. Apparently, they had filmed and edited that she was she ran a catering business or something, but then they decided last minute to cut it because they were like, it's funnier if we never figure out.
Yeah.
Just the MacGuffin of the show.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Just chilling, eating ziti and vibing.
But I mean, with the parents, like a lot of these shows, eventually got to the point. This was a show that the characters like Drake and Josh and Megan, like they still learned. Maybe not Megan; she was like an evil genius, but like Drake and Josh still learned lessons from their parents, and that is a thing. Like parents started just becoming like dopey morons, like as time went on. When you think back, shows like this or like Boy Meets World or something, where parents were like. Important building blocks of the show and like real people that sometimes had their own stories, like you're saying with the affair and Walter and like his job and stuff. Like sometimes he had like actual storylines, and that wasn't a thing that I think has stuck around.
Yeah, I can appreciate that for sure. You definitely don't see that, especially with more. I like iCarly is just like, oh, my older brother takes care of us and. It's more of, I guess more because it's not as cool. It's more people like, oh yeah, our parents are always on vacation or something. I don't know.
And that leads into, just the ability for like kids to watch the show with their parents, I guess. Like,
yeah,
all this kind of ties in. And
yeah, for sure. I was going to say real quick, the only two other characters that I think are hilarious are, Gavin, who works at the premiere, the movie theater. He's played by one of the writers and producers of the show named Jake Farrow. So he's basically just like, put on a mullet. Just go put on a mullet and be that character. But if you don't know who I'm talking about, Gavin is the one who has hots for Drake and Josh's mom.
Yeah.
And he's just like so chill. He's like, I gotta go clean the toilet. Okay.
Yeah.
I remember this guy now.
I got it.
Yeah. Hey, Drake, there's a diaper on the wall. Yeah. Yeah. But he's super like chill. And then in the episode The Storm, where they're all stuck at Drake and Josh's house during a giant hurricane, he just goes up to Drake and he's like, hey, Drake, your mom's hot. And they're like, what? The other like very minor character that I love is Papa Nichols, who messes with Craig and Eric, the nerds. In the episode The Demonator, I'll do a really run through. There's a new roller coaster that Drake and Josh leave their sleeping granddad, who's supposed to be watching them, home. So they leave him and they make the nerds watch the granddad for them. And of course, while the nerds are home alone with Papa Nichols, the granddad, he wakes up and then thinks he's back in like Vietnam, and then thinks that, or World War II or something like that, and like tries to like tackle and basically like kidnap the nerds, and then keeps. I think he thinks his like shoe is like a walkie-talkie or something. He's like, General, I got them. And then by the time they get home, the granddad's asleep again, and the nerd's like, he was crazy, and they're like, no, he wasn't. It's pretty funny.
They're like, yo, your granddad has PTSD, bro. Nah, he's fine. Don't worry about him. He's just old.
Yeah. Super funny. Anytime they go outside on the show, like when they're going to see Oprah and they're in the parking lot, or at the very end of the show when they're watching like fireworks, I think it is, or is it Drake's performance? They're just in the parking lot of the Nickelodeon studio.
Okay, bring it outside, everybody.
Yeah, which is even funnier because in iCarly, they have a special called "I Go to Japan," and they're like, "Whoa, we're in Japan!" They're in the parking lot.
Yeah.
They just put They just put some different trees.
Yeah, why fly everyone to Japan? The parking lots probably look the same.
Yeah, it was very funny because most of it is like surrounded by hedges, and so you're like, oh,
true. Yeah, you don't see a lot of hedges in Japan.
So, that's all I have for characters. I don't know. Do you guys have any? I had one more thing before we get into our favorite episodes, which is Drake and Josh and a lot of Dan Schneider shows are really good at coming up with parody names for like normal, regular things they couldn't pay money for.
You might be about to talk about one of my favorite episodes.
Yeah, go for it.
Were you going to mention the Gary Coleman grill?
No, I did not get that one.
Oh, I'll save it then when I'm talking about.
Yeah, so the George Foreman grill, the Gary Coleman grill.
Yeah.
There's a bunch of funny ones. There's a whole wiki on the Drake and Josh on the list of parody names. Mocha Cola, Zaplook.com is their Google.
GameSphere.
The GameSphere.
It's hysterical.
What was the other one that they had? Oh, the Nintendo GS. Inside Out Burger. Obviously, that Star Wars episode is Galaxy Wars, but I love Nintendo GS the most.
Nintendo GS. That's great. Not only because it sounds just like it, but it's got pin and you have a stylus. That's just brilliant.
Yeah,
I'm blown away by that one.
Because I think Megan's like, "Where's my Nintendo GS?" And she says it fast enough to go like, "Wait, what?"
I think I got one of those for Christmas. Yeah.
Okay. Well, I kind of asked y'all if you wanted to talk about maybe like top 3 episodes, just sort of the ones that stand out to you the most, the one that you relate to, or the ones you find the most funny. Does anyone want to go first?
Okay. I'll go first.
Go for it.
I'll go first. I'll try to narrow down this list. Yeah, I was just jotting down some that I knew I love, and I'll get 3. I'll get 3 out of it. One of them for sure. We mentioned it earlier in the Blues Brothers. That's one of my favorites for sure. Because you get the dynamic of them working together, and it ends with them playing music, and the music is good. It's just a very entertaining episode. But we already talked a little bit about that. Can I get 3 and an honorable mention?
Okay, yeah, sure. I really don't care. You should have a favorite episode.
So the Gary Coleman grill, just the fact that, again, instead of, you see in either comic strips or TV shows, you talk about the fake names for things, and those are always so funny. But the Gary Coleman grill, which is a grill based on Gary Coleman, is so funny. And then, of course, the pyramid scheme that it ends up being or whatever. And it's one of those Drake and Josh getting deep and get in trouble, and then Megan takes them out of it. That's always a fun dynamic that happens. Happens a few times. But yeah, obviously I was however old, I had to be explained who Gary Coleman was, and it just makes it funnier. But I think another one of my favorite ones, one of the good ones is Josh is Done. And that is when Josh is just so fed up with Drake, and he just says, all right, you're my brother, but I don't want you in my life. And he just ignores Drake. He just doesn't do anything with Drake anymore. And Josh's life gets so much better, and Drake's life gets so much worse. And so it's one of the times where the dynamics happen probably the expected way. Where Drake's getting into trouble and things are going wrong for him, but Josh is doing fine. But then at the end, they reconcile and come back together. And so it's it's a heartwarming episode when you see Drake really learn to appreciate Josh.
What's the Seinfeld episode where everyone switches places? Like everything, like Elaine basically becomes George Costanza, and
is it the opposite? Yeah, George just starts doing everything the opposite of what he does. So he's getting like girlfriends and promotions and jobs, and Elaine is
everything is terrible for Elaine.
Everything's going wrong for her. Yeah.
And then Jerry, everything just like stays the same. He just realizes because a girlfriend breaks up with him, and he's like, okay. And she's like, you're not mad? He's like, no, I mean, everything always works out for me, so it doesn't matter.
I'll find somebody else. It's been really nice dating you. Have a good day.
That's a great, I like that trope where people switch places.
Quick honorable mention is the Theater Thug episode. Did anybody else have this? If someone else did.
I did not.
It's another one. I actually, in 9th grade, we had a homework assignment that was watch 30 minutes of TV. And then write about the commercials you see and like the messages they're trying to send and how they relate to like the channel you're on, like demographics and stuff. And then write about like some of the like tropes or something you see on the show. So it was like kind of analyze like stuff like that. And the Theater Thug episode was the episode of Drake and Josh ended up watching and writing about. And yeah, it is a great highlight example of like Josh gets this part in this reenactment of the thing. Drake has one line and ends up getting like super famous for this one line, and then Josh just keeps getting arrested because he looks so much like the guy he was portraying.
I think
reenactment.
They're on FBI's Most Wanted. Is that right?
Yeah. And it's just classic. Like Josh gets all the worst stuff happens to him for being the good guy, and Drake just gets everything handed to him for doing nothing.
Yeah. That one's extremely funny. I like that one because I think they say like this is a reenactment of the crime, and everyone still thinks he's the actual killer. They're like, it's him, which is best solved up when he wears a 70s disguise. One side note about that is that in Josh Peck starred in the remake of the Red Dawn movie. And so at one point it's kind of cold and he has to wear a beanie and all the memes are like, it's the Theater Thug. Luke or Jonathan, you guys have any favorite episodes?
I've never seen an episode of Drake and Josh. So in no particular order.
Get off this Zoom chat.
My top 3 in no particular order. Number 1 is the Treehouse episode.
Yeah.
Number 2 is also the Treehouse episode. Number 3, no surprise here, never saw this coming. Also the Treehouse episode.
What?
That's the one that's the only episode that without having seen the show that I'm familiar with.
Is it because of the memes?
It is because of the memes. That and what's the other one where Josh looks at, he's like looking right at the camera and he's like, Megan.
That's
all of them.
That's a lot of them.
Yeah, that happens a lot.
I've mainly seen that talking about like the queen being upset at the royal family. It's like Megan.
Whoa, that's the gong. We gotta leave. I'm just kidding. That's the Treehouse one is great because of the memes, and that's also a great kind of the Abbott Costello sort of like the banter between the two of them. Like, Josh, where's the door? Love that. Luke, do you got any favorite episodes?
I have a few. I don't know if I have any that I would say are for sure my favorites. I know the pool one where Josh is like good at pool is one that I thought was pretty good. The one where let me see what it's called. It's called Eric Punches Drake, where Drake gets punched by the guy. What exactly happens? Yeah, and then everyone is like really into him, and he becomes popular because everyone thought that he fought Drake. Eric's excited about it, and then Drake kind of loses all his clout. And that one I thought was pretty good. And then the other one I think the sushi one where they have to be at the sushi factory. So I'm reading it now. I think apparently the situation that got them into that is they like won a contest to get their room redecorated. And then, but the contest was fake, so they walked back into like the redecorated house, and like all their furniture was gone, and the police couldn't really help them with that. So they had to take the sushi job, which is kind of like, it's like a rip off of the I Love Lucy episode where they're in the factory where like all the stuff comes really fast.
Yeah.
So it's nice to see that.
I think it's almost word for word the same as the chocolate one, but with sushi.
Really, yeah. Something like that.
Yeah. That's a classic.
Yeah, that's the one that always remembers the sushi one.
Yeah, that's classic. For me, my favorite ones are just give me 1 second, I can't remember the name. In no particular order, because it would be actually, you know what? I'll do a particular order. In number 3 for me is Steered Straight. That's the one where they have fake IDs and they're trying to get to a club, and then they realize, and the police get caught with them. And then a whole night, basically it turns into the movie Good Time by the Safdie brothers. But essentially it's like all crazy, one crazy night story where like the criminal that like comes to their house and they have to like pretend to be tough. It's very, very good. I'm not doing it justice by explaining it, but that one is very, very good. Number 2 for me is probably Mean Teacher, which if you don't know that episode is the one from season 2 where they find this magical shirt. It's like a Hawaiian shirt that has like magical power. So like basically anytime they wear it, like everything good starts happening to them. But so they try to like share it and then they end up breaking it or something.
I had that one written down as well. That's a very good one.
Yeah, I love that one. And then of course my favorite I think is still, I guess a sound of kind of cheating, but it's the finale, which is Really Big Shrimp, which is a part 2 episode, which is sort of, it has all the best moments. It has Helen getting married at the movie theater, which is funny. Where at one point I think Josh is like, all right, everybody, just let you guys know we have a small fire, and everyone runs out. That's classic. Yeah, it has Cockatoo to do the cow says moo. It's the kind of, it completes the story in a really great way. Which has that song Makes Me Happy, which makes me happy. That's sort of it. I was just going to say it's crazy how popular the show is till this day. I think a lot of people our age group would probably consider it one of the greatest TV shows of all time. It's kind of had a comeback because of the David Dobrik vlogs. I don't know if you guys are familiar with him. But he's a very, very famous YouTube vlogger who's friends with Josh Peck and has multiple times had Drake and Josh reunions. I think they went to the house that Jonathan was talking about, like the exterior of it at one point.
Oh, wow.
But yeah, that's all I have. Any final thoughts?
Just a good show. Just a good show.
Just a good show, that's for sure. Yeah. Hey, Luke, since you are a guest on Most Extreme Podcasts, with all of our guests, we normally have a prize that we give them. And I was normally trying to find some type of gift that goes along with what we're talking about. And so the only thing that I could find at Target yesterday, I'm going to go ahead and I'll pull it up right here so you can see it. I got you an Oprah magazine, since Josh is such a fan of Oprah. So I bought you a Oprah magazine. So yeah, if you want any good thoughts or tips about the summer, here you go.
Epic.
Glad you're a fan.
What did I miss?
Oh, what?
You just got the best gift that we've ever given on this podcast.
I get a magazine?
Yes.
You get the Oprah magazine.
Yeah, this is yours.
What?
Yeah.
Okay, yeah, that'll be epic. I'm going to read that on the plane.
Yeah, dude. I'll see you in a few days, so I'll do you in person. But yeah, So yeah, I was just talking about that. Everybody on Most Extreme Podcast who comes on gets a prize, and we were trying to find something that would go along with what our topic was. So this is what I could find, which is an Oprah magazine. So that's yours.
No way. That's okay. Thank you so much. Yeah, I'm glad that I asked because I was confused. I did not want to seem ungrateful or disappointed, but that's epic. That's cool. I'm gonna read that back and front.
Yeah, man. If you want some good tips on making a barbecue pizza on a grill, Oprah's got them.
Okay. I don't have a grill, but that's would be good knowledge.
Give you a reason to
way.
get one.
Yeah.
Gary Coleman.
Get a Gary Coleman.
Get a Gary Coleman one. Yeah, that would be great.
Yeah, man.
Where can I pick up a Gary Coleman?
If y'all have any final thoughts, yeah, this has been fun. Thanks, Luke, for coming on.
Absolutely. Thanks for allowing me to chat about Drake and Josh.
For sure. We do have technically 2 more things in the Drake and Josh universe, 2 movies that we will have to talk about in other episodes, I think.
Really? What are those?
There's Drake and Josh Go to Hollywood, and then there's a Christmas movie.
Oh, yeah, I remember those.
So we'll maybe have to have you on for those conversations, or, maybe something of your choice.
Yeah, let me know. Keep me in the loop.
Yeah. Other than that, thanks so much for listening to Most Extreme Podcast. Follow us on Twitter and Instagram with the handle Most Extreme Pod. And if you have any questions, you can email us with mostextremepodcast@gmail.com. Other than that, anything else? Anybody else got anything to say?
Leave it in.
Leave it in. All right. We'll see you guys next week.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye.